Prime Minister Modi, who once won Varanasi in 2014, riding on the Gujarat model of development, has made Kashi's development model an example for the entire nation. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi is all set to file his nomination for the third time from India's holiest city, Varanasi. Ahead of this, NewsX has done a survey in Varanasi where we talk to people about how satisfied they are with the development in Kashi under Prime Minister Modi's leadership. Let's in fact take a look at the survey now. The first question that we asked, do you think that Prime Minister Modi has helped improve infrastructure in Varanasi? And the answer that we got was an astounding 81% of the people who thought yes, there's been improvement. 12% thought no, 2% thought maybe, and 5% of the people were not sure or couldn't say. Moving on, the second question was, who has done a better job in improving infrastructure in Varanasi? BJP, of course, unequivocally got 82% of that percentage. Congress got 8%, the Sapa at 2%, others 4%, and 4% of the people were not sure. The question next, the third question was, would you like to see a Shiv Mandir built in Varanasi like the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya? 88% of the people said yes, 11% of the people said no, and only 1% of the people said they are not sure. Do you think, the fourth question was, do you think that the Gyanvapi mosque was built over an existing Hindu temple by Aurangzeb? A whopping 70% of the people who participated thought, yes, it was built over a temple. 12% of the people said, no, it was not, and 18% of the people said they were not sure. The fifth question, the last one, how would you like to see the Gyanvapi mosque issue resolved? Out-of-court settlement was proposed, or rather voted in, by 17% of the people. Court verdict, 73% of the people thought was the best way to go about it. As it is, was 7% of the people, and can't say was by 3% of the people. We'll talk about this particular survey with some of the people who understand this space. Dr. S.K. Datta, International Conservative Political, Economic and Foreign Policy expert, joins us on the show. Mr. Desh Ratan Nigam, political analyst, also with us on the program. Mr. Manasvi Thapar, political analyst, also joins us on the program. Mr. Surinder Singh Lali, international affairs expert and a political aficionado, also joins us on the program to talk more about this. Mr. Nigam, I'll begin with you. Well, while we are having this debate, we can see some resplendent images of the Prime Minister in his roadshow in Kashi. There's a sea of people who are in fact behind this cavalcade and in front of it as well. It's a 6-kilometer long journey that the Prime Minister is undertaking today. He's going to be filing his nomination tomorrow, as I'm very certain you're aware. We spoke to about 50 to 60 people, Mr. Nigam, in the last 1.5 hours. Not a single one of them complained. Not even one said that they were not happy. In fact, the response was not only affirmative, it was jubilation when they were asked as to what they felt has happened in Kashi over the last 10 years. What would you attribute this change to? And of course, when you bring in the matter of the Gyanvapi mosque as well, how has that also become a decisive factor or a non-decisive factor in basically capitalizing on the psyche of the voter there today? Because whatever development we have seen when it comes to the Gyanvapi mosque, even through courts, still will be called development, Mr. Nigam.
Yes, certainly, Vineet. In fact, if you look at the road shows of Prime Minister, I kept a very close eye on yesterday's Patna road show, prior to that Kanpur road show and other road shows as well. The amount of emotional and spiritual commitment of the people you see with the Prime Minister, it has crossed the boundaries set up by voting. It is no more about voting now. It has gone into the domain where people feel so much of emotional connect with the Prime Minister. They start crying, looking at him, and that is missing in the road shows of the other leaders, of the other opposition leaders that I have seen. This is humongous. This is a shift from voting to our civilizational values. The temples have reclaimed their own place in the civilization. The Kashi Vishwanath temple, Kashi being the oldest living city in the world, and Indian civilization being the oldest living continuous civilization in the world, where the rest have faded away, gone. But this civilization is continuing. The re-establishment of our own spiritual and civilizational values, which Modi ji always espouses and always called for, has taken its root. The importance of Bhagwa and Bhagwa color has been re-established in our Indian ethos and Indian civilization values. People now, wear the Bhagwa and the Tilak and actually show off. Earlier, people used to, avoid all these things. That transformation and the change that we have seen in the mindset of the people is the greatest achievement of this particular government. Development obviously has taken place. Kashi cannot be recognized. Banaras cannot be recognized. I have been there as a lawyer number of times before. What was then and what is now is something that we have to recognize and give credit to Mr. Modi as well as the UP government that they have done humongous work out there. The spiritual city has been reclaimed. It has reclaimed its place in India and abroad as well. So therefore, we have to give that credit to Mr. Modi and that transformation that Mr. Modi, by contesting from that particular place, Kashi, is something, and then the development of the Kashi Vishwanath corridor that has taken place. Yes, we all are waiting for the court verdict of Kashi Vishwanath temple. And I'm sure as a lawyer, because this is not a discussion about the legal aspects of the Kashi Vishwanath temple, but I can tell you, if you give even 10% of my legal acumen little bit of importance, I believe the verdict would go in favor of the Hindus and that temple will be reclaimed. I think it's best, as your survey also shows, people want although they are waiting for the court verdict, but if the other side, willingly and on their own volition gives it over to Hindus, because these are sacred places like Makkah or Medina for Muslims. If they do it, it will go greatly and immensely in favor of a very strong India, trying to become a Vishwaguru, which ultimately it will, sooner than later. 2047, we have kept the deadline. But that space is going to be achieved and occupied by India. India has shown the world, whether it was COVID and distributing vaccines to more than 100 countries and giving aids whenever the calamities strike. India is one of the first countries, whether it was Turkey, Nepal, or other places. India was one of the first countries. It showed its commitment to the humanity, and therefore the sea of humanity that is you are seeing in the roadshow of Prime Minister everywhere, including today in Kashi, clearly emphasizes the values India stands for, Mr. Modi stands for, and that commitment, as I'm again repeating, it has crossed the limits set by voting. It is beyond voting now. It is spiritual. It is emotional. It is the feelings that people are expressing. Voting is a foregone conclusion so far as Varanasi is concerned. It is about the margins now. The margins, which was 6.74 lakhs last time, whether it is going to surpass that. And it is only because of the emotions, the outpouring of emotions that we are seeing today on the streets of Varanasi, which is re-establishing of our own civilizational ethos and values, which has been re-established because of the present government that has come at the center, which is going to, in my opinion, will be repeated again with a thumping majority. And people have realized that Indian values have to be re-established, and even the Muslims and other minorities are also realizing the work speaks. It is not the rhetoric. And people who do not used to bother about their manifestos are actually now paying attention to their manifestos.
All right.
Yes.
I know what you're alluding to. And Dr. Datta, let me come back to you as well. Dr. Datta, are you there with us? Dr. S.K. Datta?
Yes, I can hear you, Vinit.
When I look at the people in Kashi, when I look at them talk about the growth, when I hear the passion in their voice about what development they were promised and what they were delivered, is perhaps a foregone conclusion that the Prime Minister delivered more than what was asked for. This also goes on to serve as a reminder to the opposition, which has been using the lack of development, unemployment, a lot of secular issues as well, to drive a knife through the heart of the development and the stories around it that we have heard on Kashi. Do you think that it's important for the Bharatiya Janata Party also and the Prime Minister also to look at Kashi as an example which is definitely going to foray into other parts of the country as well, regardless of states and places where the BJP government is or is not?
I completely agree with your question, Vinith, and I would say that if the opposition chooses to be permanent blind bats, it is their own choice and they are free to do that. If they don't want to see the reality, if they don't want to acknowledge the reality, if they do not want to accept the reality, then it is at their discretion to remain in that fool's paradise. And they have been living in that paradise since 2014, and they choose to remain in that paradise. And my understanding is like they will come out of that slumber on the 4th of June when they will get a shocker from across the country. And again, the blame game will start. They have already started giving signals in relation to the blame game, right from the election commission to the courts to the EVM and whatnot, and they will start that melodrama once again. Having said that, I completely agree with what Desh Ratan Nigamji has said, that the connect of the people with the Honorable Prime Minister transcends votes now, and it transcends the state boundaries. If you see the roadshow and the public meeting which the Honorable Prime Minister did in Bengal, there was a sea of humanity and people were in tears. I could see a young girl with the portrait of the Prime Minister with continuous tears. I could see a 90-year-old grandmother, barely able to stand up, and she was, she was completely allured to the aura of the Honorable Prime Minister and see the connect. The Honorable Prime Minister immediately asked in some members of the Bharatiya Janata Party to provide her with a chair so that the old grandmother, she could sit properly and she could hear the Prime Minister. Again, I saw plethora of women, they were in tears. And this is not the case only in Bengal. If you see it in UP in the road shows, if you see it in Bihar in the road shows, if you see it in Telangana, if you see it in Andhra, you see it in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, everywhere that connect was there. People coming and doing aarti of the Honorable Prime Minister, people, sounding the conch shell and flower petals. We all know kgs and tons of flower petals which are showered on the Honorable Prime Minister. That actually shows the rejuvenation, it shows the reawakening of the Hindu identity, of the Sanatan identity, which was deliberately muscled out in the last 60 years by the ragtag opposition because of their rampant minority appeasement policy. This reawakening, which has taken place since 2014, and after the historic verdict of the Ram Temple, this is something which is unstoppable now, and it is not going to stop. It is beyond vote, it is beyond state limits, and the reflection is seen right from the sentiments of a 5-year-old child to a 90-year-old grandmother or a 95-year-old grandfather. It transcends at that level, and this is something which the opposition leaders do not have. This is something which the opposition leaders do not even understand. They keep on
Right.
talking all kinds of rubbish, and I think they will continue with that. Coming over to the Gyanvapi Mandir in relation to the significant percentage of the people who have voted in favor of the holy temple of Lord Ram, Gyanvapi Mandir was always a mandir. It was destroyed by the Farman of Aurangzeb. It is written there in the Aurangzeb Nama, in his Salafnama, and Aurangzeb actually had taken pride in declaring that he had destroyed the holy temple of Lord Shiva in Kashi. So I understand that these two important centers of cultural renaissance besides Ayodhya and Mathura and Kashi are two other sentimental cultural centers in which a settlement has to be done. And
All
I
right.
understand that after the thumping majority of the NPA coming back to power and after 4th of June, I think these two issues will also be solved either through out of court settlement or
Okay.
through court.
All right. According to our survey, it's not going to be an out of court settlement, or rather, it ought not to be an out of court settlement. The court should definitely, look at this matter and have a resolution which is, of course, the right one. Manasvi, there are certain factors that designate Kashi as a victory point, or rather a victory town or a city or whatever you want to call it, for the Bharatiya Janata Party. It's ticked all the right boxes, all the right decisions have been made, and timely decisions have been made. We have seen the Prime Minister have roadshows and rallies throughout the country, but the kind of explosive response that we have seen for what the Prime Minister was doing today in Kashi is absolutely immersive. It has gone beyond the expectations of a lot of journalists as well. What would you attribute this facet to? It's not only the Prime Minister. If he alone was responsible for wooing people and attracting people or making them gravitate towards the polling booths, it would have been a different matter. But it's also backed up by work that is absolutely palpable, and work that can absolutely be traced back to even 10 years ago, when Kashi obviously was in ruins of sorts.
So this basically is that personality cult of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the attachment people have for him. There's no doubt about it. And when it comes to Kashi or Ram Mandir or such kind of religious temples or religion issue, I think he's the best man in the country as of now. I think the best man who has made religion a mainstream in politics. Earlier politicians, be it late Atal Bihari Vajpayee also, or other politicians also who were not from Congress, tried not to mix religion and politics. But Prime Minister Narendra Modi have mixed it very well, and it suits him. It suits the party ideology, and also people are loving it, and people are voting for it. I don't feel that there is any other way out of it. It's basically when you mix religion and politics and votes together, I think this is what happens. And he's a mastermind in this. I would say that he is himself the Chanakya and the Chandragupta of the present day times, wherein he understands the politics very well, he understands the pulse of people very well, and this is where the opposition has not been able to understand what is happening as of now. So such pockets where Hindu heart lies, that things needs to be somehow not countered or caused by the opposition, but somehow someone would come and make a statement, and that will just further strengthen
And Manasvi, it's not that the opposition has not been able to understand. They have also not been able to come up with some sort of a counter narrative, to defeat this policy that the Prime Minister and his party have advocated for the past 10 years. They are clueless.
So I think this is where, religion is very, very delicate and sensitive as an issue. So when that is mixed with the politics of the country, of any country, and the largest population of the country belongs to Hinduism and Hindus. So if you touch base on Ram Mandir or Kashi and opposition, because you are in opposition, you will make a statement which is in opposition of the Mandir establishment. So either you accept it, then BJP wins it. If you oppose it, then you lose. So in both the ways, you are going to be a loser. So the best model for opposition for such kind of issues, specifically where religion plays a role, has to be silent. If you don't go by the understanding of what Prime Minister Narendra Modi or the largest population of the voters of a religion like Hindus want to speak, if you don't align with it, politically speaking, you have to be silent. But somehow, in Congress, no one is silent. Someone will speak up, and that will just dismantle the entire issue of lots of issues which are there burning in the country. So the major issue becomes the religion part of it, because when religion comes in understanding, so what happens? Other issues are basically blinded. So this is where the Congress didn't understand. So there is no parallel narrative. There cannot be a parallel narrative to Ram Mandir. There cannot be a parallel narrative to Kashi Vishwanath. You have to accept it if not in Hindustan, where will Kashi Vishwanath be? So these things have to be tackled carefully, and what I say with carefully is it has to be in absolute silence or in acceptance with the BJP say, yes, our stand is that Kashi Vishwanath is there. It is not the Congress who dismantled it. It is the Aurangzeb. So Congress does not have any connections with Aurangzeb. They have to be vocal about it. It's okay that it was done by Aurangzeb, and you have to be vocal. Yeah, it was done by them, and we are okay with it. And then the counter question from the BJP side would come that why were you silent for the last 75 years?
We have a paucity of time. Let me also rope in Mr. Lali into this conversation. Mr. Lali, it takes more than just advocating a national X-ray or a census of minorities and redistribution of wealth kind of a chatter to woo the Indian audience or to woo, people who are in fact very, very serious about their politics and their leaders. Is that the fundamental difference that we get to see between the Congress party and the BJP, that they really do not, or rather do not want to understand who's voting for them and who's not?
Thank you, Vineet. And I'd like to say that the opposition has miserably failed in capturing the imagination of the people. Now, if I dwell into this would be another debate how Congress, since 1984, with 404 seats, has been going down, and nobody's been able to smell the coffee. But having said that, I'd first like to congratulate each one on this panel and everybody watching your program, that we're fortunate to be living in a country where the election, the mammoth size of where over 90 crore people are going to vote. We are fortunate to be living in such a democracy. I mean, Vineet, I was in Switzerland once and I overslept in my train, and by the time I got up, the European Union wasn't there. I had crossed through countries, so when I got off the train, the gentleman said, you don't have a visa for the following country because you overslept for 3 days. So a country which is huge, which is a subcontinent within itself, and imagine the mammoth task of holding an election with over 90 crore people voting. So that's one. Har dil Modi, vikas bhi virasat hai. Hamar Kashi, Hamar Modi is what I have seen on the banners in Varanasi. So I think that best explains the sentiment of people. I'm in a 6-kilometer roadshow with 4 hours. 19 points have been set up, and these 19 points are more like it is sort of a cultural renaissance where over 10 lakh BJP workers are deployed, and with people with various talents to do with Hinduism and our civilization have been brought in to create a phenomena. It's not an election, it's a phenomena. I mean, and I don't think this sort of campaign has started as we think we have, because over 60,000 crores have been spent over the last few years. I mean, that the corridor is including one of them, where I still need some work needs to be done. And I don't think that's the PM's prerogative, because the civic and driving sense is in our domain. But having said that, the PM, I think, has been working on his constituency since 2014, because he's had over 7 head of states come here. In 2015, it was the Japanese, 2018, the French, the German, and then 2019, the Mauritian. 70 ambassadors and diplomats have been there, and I don't need to tell you how effective diplomacy is. Every time a diplomat comes and, he understands, he feels, and then he goes out and probably, does his best to influence foreign policy for our interest. And I don't think it is really it's an election campaign. I think it's a very profound campaign which is based on spiritualism and promoting all the good that Hinduism has to offer. Vineet, in the beginning of the program, you said that the Prime Minister has made Varanasi a development model for the country. I think he's made that a development model for the world. And by the fact that I said, I justified by saying that, heads of state have come here. And my last point, Vineet, Larry Summers said that, Japan is a country of hospitals, Europe of museums, China of jail. We're the spiritual capital of the world. I mean, any amount of wealth that I've seen people have created in Western economies, and especially Southern California, after they're done and dusted with it, they come back to Varanasi, they come back to Rishikesh, because our best creation, and I say that with absolute responsibility, way more than the bulb or the aeroplane or the Teslas or the iPhones, is the art of yoga and meditation. That's the biggest gift we've given to the world, which does not have an expiry date. So the Prime Minister has done a great job in bringing a product on the shelf which has no expiry date.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
and I don't need to top that to sign off with. You've made a wonderful point, and that's exactly what we're going to use to sign off. We're going to take a break, but we're going to continue tracking that roadshow for you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.